The workday was coming to an end. Tired office workers were hurriedly coming home. Lillian diligently cleaned up her desk, got rid of the trash, sorted papers, put documents in the safe, dusted, and watered her favorite flowers she had brought from home. There was so much to do in the afternoon that the girl had to finish everything at the last minute. However, she was in no hurry, and for good reason. "Lillian, are you coming already? How much longer do we have to wait for you? Can't you at least leave some work for the cleaning lady?" asked Wanda, a friend and colleague of hers, in an irritated tone. "Wanda, don't wait for me," Lillian replied. "Alex and I are going to the movies tonight, and then we'll sit in a cafe. I've been promising him for a long time." "You decided to go out with that idiot again?" exclaimed Wanda in surprise, looking at her friend in bewilderment. "Aren't there any other men in the world but him?" "Wanda, well, you're saying the same thing again," Lillian muttered angrily. "Well, tell me, why can't you stand Alex? What has he done to you? Why don't you like the fact that I'm talking to him?" "You're still asking," said Wanda in an astonished tone. "That Alex of yours is a strange man. Cunning and secretive. It's better not to mess with him at all. Just look at him. It's written all over his face that he's a loser. Lillian, you know I only wish you well." "Well, then please don't interfere in my personal life," the angry girl interrupted her friend gently. "I'm not a child. I'll figure it out on my own. Thank you for worrying about me, but it's unnecessary, believe me. You go, Wanda. Don't wait for me. Alex is coming down here now, and I haven't had time to finish everything yet. See you tomorrow, friend." You silly girl, Lillian," Wanda grimaced and left the office. Lillian joined the company as an account manager only a few months ago. In that time, she had managed to win the favor of her superiors and make friends with several of the girls in her department. Some representatives of the stronger sex tried to impress her, but she was sure that she should grow in her position first, and only then think about relationships. However, the acquaintance with Alex happened extremely unexpectedly, as well as grew into something more. Having not slept through the night because of overly noisy neighbors, Lillian could barely keep her legs moving that morning. She bought herself a coffee from the vending machine, but before she knew it, she bumped into Alex. The coffee stain spread all over Alex's white shirt, and the guy himself didn't even flinch. Though it was obvious he was burned, Lillian hurriedly apologized. Alex answered her somehow crumpled, and the girl felt guilty before him. That night, she suggested that Alex have coffee with her as a sign of reconciliation, and he agreed. Lillian liked the guy. She found it interesting and pleasant to talk with him, because he was well-mannered and erudite. Alex knew a lot of interesting things and instantly made a positive impression on Lillian. No one on the team took the guy seriously. Everyone tried to stay as far away from him as possible, talking to him only when necessary. And he himself kept away from everyone, communicated with almost no one, and was able to open up only to Lillian. The girl could not understand why her new friend and admirer was called a freak by her colleagues. What was it about him that repulsed everyone around him? Alex was a good-looking guy with big blue eyes. However, neither his appearance nor his personality traits attracted anyone in the office except Lillian, and this remained a mystery to her. She hadn't noticed any oddities in Alex's behavior, and when she asked why others shunned him, they merely chuckled and said he was still dependent on his mother. But Alex was not at all like a mama's boy, so Lillian convinced herself that she shouldn't pay any attention to her colleagues. The girl went to the park with Alex several times. From time to time, they had lunch together at a nearby cafe, and a couple of other times Alex walked Lillian home. So the young people started dating. They made no secret of the fact that they were in a romantic relationship. Some people in the office were shocked to see Lillian, shook their heads in puzzlement, and smirked indulgently. And some openly twirled their index finger against their temple. Colleagues did not understand why such a beautiful and intelligent girl paid attention to Alex and not to someone else. And she passed her colleagues sitting in the dining room during their lunch break. She repeatedly heard them whispering to one another. "Oh, she's determined to make our weirdo happy," the brunette marketing girl said dismissively, snorting. She must have a syndrome that, well, what do you call it? Ha! I hear you. Must be getting married soon. Pretty and weird like Beauty and the Beast, replied the blonde. And then they both laughed. Lillian had never been dependent on other people's opinions, so the conversation among her colleagues had no effect on her mood or her thinking. She was simply curious as to the reason why the whole staff disliked her boyfriend. Meanwhile, Alex was not the only one courting Lillian in the office. A young man from the personnel department did not give her a pass. He gave her signs of attention almost from the first day she appeared in the office. David did not arouse any bright feelings in Lillian, unlike Alex. More than once the man asked her out. He insistently invited her to the cinema, cafe, and theater, but every time she flatly refused. She was in a friendly chat with David, and he was sincerely pleased with this as well. Sometimes David had lunch with Lillian when Alex was out of the office, for which her lover would reprimand the girl and tell her that rumors would circulate about her as a frivolous girl. Such words Lillian did not take seriously. She was well aware that Alex was just jealous of her and tried to make sure that he had no more reason to have such an improper, oppressive feeling. Lillian liked hanging out with David too, but it so happened that she herself did not notice how she became Alex's girlfriend, and therefore she should not do what her young man did not like. "Sweetheart, let's have dinner with my mother tonight," Alex said in an affectionate and obliging tone as the two lovers left the office. "She wanted to meet you for a long time. I'm sure my mother will make a good impression on you because she's a wonderful woman. And she's a great cook, too. Once you try her pies, you'll never want to eat any other pie." "Are you sure it's time to meet your mother?" asked Lillian in confusion. The girl was not yet sure of her feelings. She thought the relationship had to get much more serious before she could meet his parents. But Alex's attitude was apparently serious. "What if she doesn't like me at all?" asked Lillian, determined to somehow justify her reluctance to meet the mother. "Come on, honey, I'm sure you'll win her over at first sight with your charming, kind smile and deep, thoughtful gaze. You'll make friends with her, I assure you. My mother is a simple woman, she won't be any trouble." Lillian understood that her refusal would offend Alex. She had to agree, though she felt that her intuition told her otherwise. Lori made a good impression on Lillian. She seemed a caring and understanding woman. She praised the girl and said she and Alex were a wonderful couple. The woman did not treat her son like a small child at all. She did not wipe his nose like they said in the office. And didn't have to be wary of her feelings. A month after meeting Alex's mother, Lillian had an unforeseen problem that took away her peace of mind. She was renting a one-room apartment near her work, but her landlord suddenly announced that he was selling the apartment and had already found a buyer. He gave Lillian a week to pack up and leave. The girl was desperate. She did not know what to do and where to move to. Lillian could not find anything suitable for her. The housing was either too expensive or too far away from her place of work. That's when Alex decided to come to the aid of his chosen one. "Honey, why don't you move in with me? I have a big room. You and I can fit comfortably in it, and I don't live too far from the office. I think that's a great idea, don't you? In fact, you and I should get married. We're not kids anymore. Why not legalize our relationship?" This was not how Lillian had imagined a marriage proposal. She thought it had to happen in some special way. However, she was sympathetic to the words of Alex, who approached life from the practical side. He was far from romantic, but he did not know how to do something beautifully. But he cared about his beloved. The girl agreed to legalize their relationship the same evening. She moved into her fiancé's apartment. Lori was happy that Lillian and Alex had decided to live together, but she insisted that the wedding should not be delayed. So the lovers legalized their relationship the next morning. Living under the same roof as her future mother-in-law, Lillian occasionally caught strange looks. Lori seemed to look at her angrily, but as soon as she asked if everything was all right, a smile appeared on the woman's lips. "Sure, honey, it's okay. How could you think otherwise? I wish nothing but happiness for my son, and I'm glad you'll be together," the woman said, but in a strained way. Lillian was in no hurry to share her assumptions with Wanda. She was afraid that her colleague would not understand her, because she already disliked Alex. Alex and Lillian did not celebrate the wedding. They modestly signed early in the morning and drove to work. Lillian felt like she was trapped in something, like she was doing something she didn't want to do. This feeling made her extremely uncomfortable. The girl had no family. Her grandfather, who had raised her, died a few years ago, and she was left all alone in the big world. The only person close to her was her husband, but as soon as she began to share her assumptions with him, Alex's mood soured. "You're imagining all these oblique glances. My mother likes you. It's all right. She's happy we got married. What did you want? To be bowed at your feet every day like a queen?" The man snorted irritably at his wife. One day, something happened that finally shocked Lillian. Lillian's special Women's Day didn't come on time, and Lillian was very upset. Her stomach hurt, and she was afraid she'd caught an infection again. What it had taken to cure herself as a teenager when she had caught an infection in a public restroom, the girl was terrified of the treatment that might lie ahead of her. She talked to Alex and told him that she should inform her boss that she would not be able to go to work, because she had to see a doctor and make sure everything was all right. "Look, maybe you're pregnant?" Alex asked with a frown. "I don't know," the girl shrugged. "To be honest, I wouldn't even allow myself the thought. Anyway, I need to get to a doctor to get everything checked out." Alex looked frightened at his chosen one and shrugged his shoulders in confusion. However, Lillian was not able to go to the gynecologist because there were problems with a new project at work. So 3 days passed. At night, the girl awoke because she heard someone's voices. Opening her eyes, Lillian saw the face of Lori leaning over her, who was dressed in a long, snow-white shirt. She held a sack of some hideous-smelling herbs in her hand and mumbled to herself, pouring them over the girl's stomach. Lillian cried out in fright and jumped frantically from the bed. An unspeakable horror gripped her. Only at that moment did she notice Alex standing beside his mother, watching what was going on and reading something from a black sheet of paper. Lillian noticed the salt that was scattered around the bed. "What's going on here? What are you doing?" cried Lillian frightenedly. "Leave me alone. Leave now." "Be quiet," Alex commanded, glaring angrily at the dumbfounded girl. "Don't interfere with my mother's right." "What right? What nonsense is that? I'm going to scream. I'll wake up all the neighbors and call the police in the end," Lillian said in shock. After these words, Lori reluctantly left her son's room. As soon as the door closed behind her, Lillian stunnedly asked Alex, "What was that, Alex? What does that even mean? What kind of nonsense is that? Are you taking part in your mother's crazy games?" "My mother only wanted to help us," Alex said nonchalantly, looking at his trembling, frightened wife with annoyance. "You understand? We don't need a baby right now. We don't have enough money ourselves right now. We need to earn money first before we can think about children. I told my mother about your delayed menstruation. She said her ritual would help get rid of the baby." "Oh my God," cried Lillian frightenedly, for the words of her chosen one drove her wildly terrified. "Who have I messed with? I thought it was all a rumor. You said your mother entertained herself with trinkets lying around the house, like amulets and bags of salt. But it turned out to be more serious than that. Tell me, did she put a spell on me too? What nonsense. I don't want to stay here anymore." Lillian jumped up from her seat and started packing. Alex tried to stop her, to talk her out of it, but he was unsuccessful. The girl quickly gathered her things and jumped out of the apartment. She got out of the staircase and sobbed uncontrollably on the bench tiredly. Lillian was in utter despair and had no idea what to do, where to go. She had no roof over her head. Going back to Alex and his mother was out of the question. He had shared a secret with his mother before he had even known if his wife was pregnant. He didn't try to talk to Lillian and ask her what she wanted. To get rid of a baby that might not even be there, and to get rid of it in such a subtle way. Of course, Lillian thought it was strange that her mother-in-law was drawn to amulets, but she did not think that she would perform such horrible rites. At first, the girl remembered Wanda. She decided to call her friend and ask her to stay with her for a while, but very soon she gave up that idea, because Wanda lived in a one-room apartment with her parents and younger brother. Suddenly, Lillian's phone beeped. letting her know that someone had sent her a message. At first, she was frightened. She thought it was Alex. But seeing the name of a colleague and friend on the display made her feel better. She opened the message and read what it said. "Sorry for writing so late. You're probably already asleep. I just wanted to tell you that I managed to get that book in English that you have been dreaming of for so long. I'll bring it to the office tomorrow morning. Good night, Lillian." The girl smiled through her tears. She was touched by the kindness of David, who one day during a conversation accidentally learned that Lillian had long dreamed of buying a rare book by her favorite author. David remembered this and found the book to please the girl and made her dream come true. "Thank you, David. What have you done means a lot to me. You always help me. I need your help even now. I really need you," Lillian replied to the message. David soon called back, and Lillian, sobbing bitterly and in tears, told him that she was in a hopeless situation. And stunned by her story, the young man offered to help her. So the girl temporarily settled in the apartment of her longtime admirer and began to look for a suitable place to live. Only then did she really get to know the man she had been indifferent to for several years. David surrounded Lillian with attention and care, reassured and supported her. He did not pressure the girl, trying to take advantage of the fact that she was in a difficult emotional state after her breakup with Alex. The man did everything he could to distract the girl from her sad thoughts and to give her positive energy. David soon found a suitable apartment for Lillian, which was close to the office. He was able to negotiate with the landlord and get a significant discount. The man paid for the first month himself and soon moved her belongings into her new apartment. "Thank you, David," the girl whispered in a trembling, anxious voice. She lowered her head in embarrassment, realizing there was nothing more she could say. "I will never forget your kindness. You were there when I needed it most." "Oh, there's no need to thank," the man said reverently. "I would do anything for you. You know that. More than anything, I want to see you happy, and I could turn the world upside down for just one smile from you. As pathetic as it sounds, I won't let anyone hurt you. I'll wipe out anyone who hurts you." Lillian looked at David with gratitude and touching tenderness. She now had no doubt that she would be like a stone wall beside this man, that God had given her not only a faithful, caring friend, but a beautiful, worthy companion. She did not hurry, however. She had not yet recovered from her breakup with Alex. Lillian had a hard time working with her ex-husband in the same firm. She divorced Alex, but he still gave her no peace and came down to her department every day to try to win the girl back again. Alex, despite everything that had happened, was unusually persistent and eloquent. What pleased Lillian was that her assumptions had turned out to be wrong. She was not pregnant by Alex. "Lillian, how long are you going to hold a grudge against me? Come on. I can't do without you. Your place is by my side. You're my woman," Alex said in a cocky tone, walking up to his ex-wife during her lunch break and grabbing her hand. At that moment, Lillian realized that she had finally let go. Alex had manipulated her before. First, he'd made her feel guilty about that spilled coffee. Then he'd often pressured her to think she was an outcast and to feel sorry for herself. Now she finally let go. She realized she didn't love Alex either. She hadn't planned to get married, but it all happened too quickly, and she herself didn't realize how she'd let it happen. Now it was as if Lillian's eyes had been opened. If Alex wasn't bewitching her with his mother's rituals, he was definitely manipulating her skillfully. But now the truth was on her side. "Let go of me," cried Lillian abruptly, dazed in surprise. "You're hurting me. I told you that our relationship was a big mistake. There can be nothing more between us. Forget me. Do you hear me? Leave me alone. I don't want to see you anymore. Don't come after me." Lillian didn't want to lose her good job because of her ex-husband's inappropriate behavior, but she didn't know how to make sure Alex didn't bother her anymore. She did not tell David about it because she knew that the furious man would not be ceremonious with the insolent, restless colleague and would quickly put him in his place. But fate had decided otherwise. David did learn the truth that day. On his way out of the office with the other men, David unwittingly witnessed Lillian and Alex arguing. He stopped abruptly for a second and froze in place, holding his breath. "You think I don't know the reason you've been avoiding me? You fell in love with a man from your department, didn't you? You quickly found a replacement for me. It didn't take you long to suffer for me, and you kept swearing your love and devotion. You're just a liar. You're incapable of love and appreciation." The angry Alex swung his arm sharply at Lillian, wanting to punish her. But David was there in time to stop him. He swung his fist across his colleague's face, causing Alex to fall to the floor, unsteady on his feet. "Don't ever go near Lillian again. Understand?" That was a warning blow. After the second one, you won't get up so fast. Don't let me see you anywhere near her again. Get out of here while I'm still somehow holding myself together. "I'll go," the stunned Alex replied with a long sob. "You shouldn't have done that, Lillian. You'll regret it later, but it'll be too late." Lillian hugged David with tears in her eyes and laid her head on his shoulder. At that moment, she realized that she had found her true love, that she wanted to spend the rest of her life with this beautiful, kind, gentle, caring, and generous man who had managed to heal her wounded soul. Soon, Lillian and David began dating, and a few months later, the lovers were married. Alex no longer approached his ex-wife, but watched her intently from afar. Lillian more than once caught his interested and greedy glances, which made her frightened heart sink in her chest. The boss could see how tense the atmosphere was in the team. Not wanting to lose any of his staff, he suggested that the newlyweds move to a new branch of the company, which was being opened in another city in a managerial position. David and Lillian agreed because they had great opportunities there. It was not until 5 years later that the happy couple came to their hometown to see family and friends. David and Lillian met Wanda in the park, who had been in touch with them the whole time. She told them that Alex had not changed a bit over the years. "Oh, he's still the same loser and weirdo," Wanda grinned contemptuously. "The whole staff shuns him. Nobody wants to see him. He's still always following his mommy, who seems to have tied him to herself with an invisible chain. She is, of course, happy because that is what she wanted. Alex has no woman. Who needs him? He's nothing but trouble and problems." Lillian was horrified at her friend's words. She squeezed her husband's hand tightly and mentally thanked God for showing her the true face of Alex in time. She also thanked God for David, who had become the whole world to her. Lillian understood one thing that day. When she would have a son, she would never tie him to her, with excessive care and blind love. She would give her child the freedom to go wherever his soul wished, and he would find happiness.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my second year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, we could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. I will do my best. Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. Did you not hear what I said? I'm sorry. I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, I'm thirsty. Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. I don't care what they say, I plan to quit anytime, he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance. As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. "I'm leaving." I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick? What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. "Probably Sam." Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. "Do you know how much revenue we get from that company?" "We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs. Gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized." Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. "All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason." "What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do." "I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you." "Please." Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, "Yes. That's Nick for you." Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, "I'm very sorry." Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, "Get his boss here immediately." It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. "What is that idiot doing?" "All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next." Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. "If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you." I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was, as the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. "Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize." Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. "What kind of training are you giving your subordinates?" Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed, I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their in. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry." Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." "Mike, what have you done?" Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here. He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hope to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.